It's not just another day in your life. Things are changing for the better. At Comcast, we see those changes, and we're thinking about how we use technology today to live, work, learn, and play. And we're building for the future now, so we're better prepared for the wants and needs of tomorrow. That's why Comcast is rolling out multi-gig internet speeds to more than 50 million homes and businesses before the end of 2025, making our already industry-leading network even faster, smarter, greener, and more reliable. Over the decades, Comcast has been your partner, working hard to serve your community, and will continue to be your partner. We're expanding our gigabits so you can enjoy the tiny bits that matter most.
Want your boss to put some real action behind the rhetoric when they talk about making your workplace more inclusive? Find out how to hold their feet to the fire and demand diversity on the Diversity Dude podcast.
Hello there, and welcome back to the Diversity Dude podcast. I'm your host, Slampers Fisher, marriage and family therapist, award-winning author, and national speaker on the topic of multicultural awareness and diversity. And for those of you who are interested in even more positive and encouraging tips and strategies beyond what I share in podcasts like this, then feel free to check out my award-winning book, Diversity in Clinical Practice, nationally recognized for the unique way in which it addresses the often difficult topic of multicultural awareness and diversity, designed for more than just therapists. If you're a helping professional in any way, Diversity in Clinical Practice can help you meet the greatest variety of cultural needs possible for those whom you serve. And it's available in paper and audiobook versions for your convenience. And whether it be through my one-on-one relationship building efforts as a therapist or my informing and empowering efforts as an author or speaker, know that my personal mission is to do my part to improve the world one strengthened relationship at a time. So, today I want to share with you an encouraging and practical perspective on name bias. So, recently, a Black man made headlines when he was able to show evidence of an experience that many have declared has occurred previously, but without evidence to prove it, those experiences were dismissed as speculative, or maybe even making a big deal out of nothing, or reading too much into things. What experience is that? Well, trying to find a job, as we all have, Dwight Johnson sent his resume along with a job application at a luxury hotel, hoping to get an interview and show how he would be the best fit for the role they were seeking to fill. Unfortunately, Dwight never heard back from them. He tried again, and the same thing happened. On one hand, he knew that it's commonplace for companies to get so many applications and resumes that they don't always respond, even to tell you no. Instead, it's more of a, if we're interested, we'll respond, and if we're not, then from the silence, you'll get the hint and move on. On the other hand, Dwight considered the fact that he was confident, not only in his ability to perform the role he was applying for, but also in the fact that his job application and resume effectively communicated such. Considering what else could have influenced his not receiving a call back, he considered the possibility that cultural discrimination might be playing a factor. To test this possibility, before giving up and indeed moving on, Dwight resubmitted his application and resume with a slight modification. Instead of writing his name as Dwight Jackson, he wrote his name as John Jabrowski, with the guess that the cultural background imagined by the person evaluating the names on the resume would be different, potentially even more positive, as a result of that change. Now, if no response was received after this change, then it could have been easy to consider the experiment complete and indeed move on, assuming that the company was indeed not impressed by his application and resume experiences and qualifications. But that's not what happened. John received a response, inviting him to a phone interview, multiple interviews actually, within the same week, expressing their continued interest. Eventually, Dwight revealed the apparent biased influence discrimination that had occurred, and he was then informed that he was no longer considered a viable candidate for the job. Why do I bring this up? Well, in part because without seeing and hearing about experiences like this in real life, it's easy to dismiss people's concerns about this as a thing of the past, or a made-up story to complicate simple things, or to justify the actions of decision makers in professional roles as being influenced by anything else but cultural biases. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't believe that every ignored resume or every job lost is due to cultural bias or discrimination. However, experiences like this make it easy to consider that it does happen, and likely more often than we think, because it is often justified, explained away, or used against the person being discriminated against as if they're just bitter that they weren't as qualified for the job as they thought, because clearly, if they were, they would have gotten a job, or so people think. The fact that both possibilities exist would hopefully be enough to not only just influence all intentional efforts to not only reduce the likelihood that we would contribute to biases such as this, but also that we would do all that's within our power to reduce the likelihood of that occurring in the areas where we have our influence individually and professionally. To make improvements like this, I encourage you to incorporate the following considerations moving forward. Consideration number one: just because you don't see the bias doesn't mean it isn't real. Unfortunately, some biases are conscious and as intentional as they seem. One CNN report recounted a CEO admitting to splitting the job application piles into two, with one pile being the applicants that had black sounding names and the second pile being everyone else, only to begin throwing away the pile of black sounding names applicants in the trash and then starting the process. As horrible as that sounds, that only reflects those whose biases are conscious and intentional and that you actually hear about. The same practice occurs far and wide with decision makers reading applications and resumes and saying to themselves unconsciously or subconsciously, I don't know what it is, but something about this application makes me feel uncomfortable. Like they may not be the best fit for our company. The person feeling this may similarly be influenced by name bias, but not realize it. It doesn't have to be conscious in order for it to be real and in order for it to have an impact, not just on the applicant themselves, but also on the decision maker, influencing them to always do what they've always done and wonder why they're not meeting a greater variety of needs. Which leads to consideration number two. Name bias doesn't just impact those being biased against, it also influences the decision makers and the companies as a whole. Sure, most of the conversation tends to be about how Dwight and others similar to him in his shoes have felt. However, I'd also like to add that in addition to the potential social pressure or possibly even cultural cancellation impact on certain exercises of name bias, if it came to light, as it indeed did here, the company also has a separate vested interest in reducing name bias, that being the company's well being as a whole. Put more simply, not only does the potential job applicant lose, but the company loses as well by these types of practices. How? Because the more practices like this are allowed to occur, the more insulated companies become, reducing diversity in thought, experiences, and expertise. And with similar cultural life experiences, they are less likely to be able to have the insights necessary to meet a variety of potential client needs beyond that which they are personally familiar. It is possible to exceed their personal experiences. However, absolutely that's possible. And I'm a firm believer that we can learn to do a lot more than we have been personally experienced or even modeled. However, I also know that this will take a lot more work to do. Instead, or at least in addition to, surrounding ourselves with those with similar as well as different beliefs and experiences and life contributions to the work environment can have a big experience on the potential viability of the company as a whole, hopefully helping to become more broad in their client and customer base and benefiting the company and all the needs they're able to meet in the process. Diversity is not just about diversity for diversity's sake, or even as a charity case for those who are complaining about it, but it can become a core component of the efficacy and long-term relevance of the company as a whole. And then there's consideration number three. The sooner we accept our biases, the sooner we can reduce them. I say this all the time, but biases are merely inclinations and partialities such that we are more comfortable with things which we are familiar with and already have a positive view. As a result, things that we are not as familiar or which we have been personally or personally experienced as positive can be considered negative or likely to be biased against. If this is the case, then we don't have to divide people into biased or unbiased personas or characteristics or people as a whole. Instead, we can all acknowledge that biases likely originated from somewhere. Take the time to learn what experiences, whether personal experiences or personally witnessed experiences or even taught experiences, contributed to our biases. Learn new, more accurate facts to correct our assumptions and perceptions, wherever appropriate, and move forward making intentional efforts to make others feel valued no matter their similarities or differences. Sometimes seeking similarities for one kind of collaboration and other times seeking and valuing differences for a different kind of collaboration. Intentionally acknowledging our biases and their admitted influence on our perspectives, but refusing to let them negatively dictate our interpretations of others and their behaviors and our actions moving forward is where we need to move. My hope for you is that you will be willing to accept the inevitability of bias, preferences, and leanings in yourself as well as others based on past experiences, and make intentional efforts to reduce the negative impact of these biases on your personal and professional interactions with others. And if you see bias influencing others, don't fear it or dismiss it. Instead, call it out and see if that person is open to a similar journey of self exploration or whether they need incentive and social pressures to improve their behaviors. And when you hear names with which you are not familiar, make intentional efforts to not make assumptions about a person's worth and potential contribution based solely on the names given to them in birth that have different meaning to them than they do to you. Instead, learn more and be pleasantly surprised by what you discover. Your future and your company's future may never be the same as a result. And with that, I'll say thanks again for listening in to today's Diversity Dude podcast. If you have any pressing diversity related questions that you'd like me to address in an upcoming podcast, or if your organization is in need of a shame free or empowering guest speaker or training on this often sensitive topic, then feel free to reach out to me directly at www.diversitymadesimple.com. And if you know of anyone else who can benefit from a positive and encouraging perspective on this often difficult topic of diversity, then feel free to send them a link to this podcast so they can be encouraged as well. Or share with them my award-winning book, Diversity in Clinical Practice, available at Amazon.com. And as usual, I look forward to addressing as many topics as possible in future podcasts to help you improve as many relationships as possible at work, at home, and in your community. And as always, remember this: you don't need to know everything about everyone in order to have a positive impact on someone. Thank you all for tuning in, and have a great day.
Tune in each week and find out how to demand and implement diversity at your job. To hear more, check out previous Diversity Dude shows on ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com.
You know Shaletta makes you laugh, but did you know Shaletta Brundage can also make you think and boost your business? Media personality, activist, and comedian Shaletta Brundage founded Shaletta Makes Me Laugh to celebrate and share the best of Black culture. It's a podcasting platform. You can download 10 weekly podcasts hosted by African-American subject experts at ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com is also a production house, creating broadcast-quality commercial content. And Shaletta and her team of storytellers create powerful promotional campaigns to get businesses the brand awareness they're looking for. Some of Minnesota's top businesses trust Shaletta, and you can too. Get out the word about your events and products and get in front of communities of color with ShalettaMakesMeLaugh.com. She's got the power to help your business.
In this job, I challenge myself and grow.
At Lutheran Social Service of Minnesota, Kelly makes a difference.
We see people, not disabilities. I'm here for them.
Lutheran Social Service is now hiring direct support professionals to work in our homes and empower people in our community. The work is rewarding, and so are the benefits. Full-time direct support professionals receive medical, dental, and vision plans, matched retirement savings, paid time off, and more.
LSS is a great organization. They recognize my talents and my desire to grow.
Kelly has advanced to a job as a training specialist, working with new employees to prepare them to support people with disabilities.
We're neighbors helping neighbors. So do work that matters. Grow with us.
Find your meaningful career at Lutheran Social Service, named a top workplace by employees. Learn more at lssmn.org/immediate openings. Ask about the hiring bonus. You might be eligible for up to $2,000.
Are you a woman known as a good listener? Do you have skills in de-escalating situations? Are you what they call a people person? Then the Minneapolis Police Department would like to meet you. Now in a rebuilding phase, the Minneapolis Police Department is recruiting more women to wear the badge. The department offers career options for women with a high school diploma or GED. There are also opportunities for women with 2- and 4-year degrees who are ready to apply their skills in new ways. Police work makes a great second career for social workers, teachers, nurses. Women in their 30s and 40s are welcome to apply. There's no age cap. You'll be paid while you train trained and mentored by veteran women officers invested in your success. Minneapolis also welcomes current police officers to join the state's largest department. Make a difference on the streets, working in your community, in a career with competitive salaries and generous benefits. Go to minneapolismn.gov and search police jobs to find out more.
If you live in an older home, it may contain lead-based paint on walls, woodwork, and windows. Even more bad news, lead exposure can be dangerous to young children and impact their brain development. And now, the good news. Hennepin County will fix lead hazards in your home at no cost to you.
We were worried because of the paint in the windows in the bedroom. They were peeling and chipping, and we know that when paint peels and chips and it looks a certain way, that's possibly lead. We were worried for our children more so than anything.
Eligible homes can qualify for up to $15,000 in upgrades. You may even qualify for new energy-efficient windows. Don't worry, Hennepin County has a trusted list of pre-approved contractors. You won't even have to find companies with correct licenses or certifications.
I've just done a test and it's positive. So we know that this is lead-based paint, and then we know it's a hazard because it's creating dust every time this window moves and opens. And if you look in here, that's just full of lead paint chips.
You won't have to stay with your cousin while you're getting the lead out. Hennepin County even pays for you and your family to stay in a hotel while the work is underway. The last good news is how easy it is to apply. Just go to hennepin.us/lead control to get started.
I'm really happy with the program. We can go to bed knowing that our children are safe.
That's hennepin.us/lead control. Tell your friends about it.